All right, welcome. We're here today with Elizabeth Hamill for another episode of our series on the Weiss Method, discussing the Weiss Method itself, and specifically the different things that the Weiss Method is used to treat. So for those who haven't heard about the Weiss Method or might want a refresher on what it is, if you want to give them a quick rundown of what the Weiss Method is and how it works before we get started.
Sure. Basically, the Weiss Method is an energy-based treatment that interrupts the dependency, the cycle that dependency lives inside of the person at the root cause. And it does that with a light touch to access some of the inner organs and also cleaning and rebalancing the bioenergetic field. So that's the nutshell version.
Sounds good. And we'll go into it a little bit more as we discuss it. But for those who don't know as well, we've discussed how the Weiss Method can treat a number of things. In the past, we've spoken about treating some harmful substance dependencies such as marijuana. We've discussed alcohol. We've discussed nicotine. However, the Weiss Method can also be used to help treat other harmful drug dependencies as well, correct?
Yes. Yes, it can. And so that's the short answer. Did you want to ask me something about that specifically, or?
Yeah, we definitely want to dive in more. So specifically, what harmful drug dependencies does the Weiss Method focus on treating?
Well, any harmful drug that a person is dependent on and would like to really not have that in their life anymore, the Weiss Method can help them with. So the really harmful drugs like opioids, heroin, cocaine, any of these types of heavy duty drug situations, the Weiss Method can help a person with. We do, however, have a different requirement that we ask people to have actually gone through a rehab program so that they are no longer on the specific harmful drug. So that's out of their system. And then once that has been completed, the practitioner comes in, the Weiss Method practitioner can then interrupt that addictive cycle. Because most people know that it's one thing not to have the drug in your system anymore. It's another thing for that addictive cycle to be broken, because there's still going to be cravings. There's a lot of people that reuse as soon as they get out of rehab because that cycle is not broken. So that's the first requirement. The second requirement is that that there is doctor supervision. So, we are not physicians, we're practitioners. And so they need to have a doctor, in a sense, on call to take care of anything that may come up in the midst of it. It generally doesn't, but it's a precaution. And so those are the two differences for the harmful drug package and program. It is 6 different treatments, separate treatments that really take place. It's not as regimented as the alcohol cessation, which is, 4, 1 week apart, etc. It really is dependent on the person. So it may, happen quicker than a week apart. It may be longer. It just really depends on what the requirement of the person is. So that is, that's how the Weiss Method really handles harmful drug dependencies, and it can be very successful uh, if those two aspects: one, that the person has actually been through um, a situation where they are no longer have the drug in their system, and two, that their doctor is right there with them. Um, when I say right there with them, is available for them, and so yeah, so that's really the core of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And why you talk about breaking the addictive cycle, and that's what the Weiss Method is focused on doing. Why is that addictive cycle so difficult to break for someone without something like the Weiss Method?
Um, because and I'll speak of it specifically in this case, to do with harmful drug addiction and dependency. In the I think in our 5-part series on the website, there is two things: how the Weiss Method works and the addictive cycle and how that works. And with these really strong, very harmful drugs, they are really, really tricky to deal with because they are so addictive. And it's really, and everybody, this is not news to most people because it's always in the news. How many overdose deaths happen, and it's an epidemic out there. And so the brain is really, really, I don't know how to describe it in a, without going into a long explanation of how the brain works when it's on drugs, but um, it is almost separated out from the person, I would say. And that's metaphorically speaking, and energetically speaking, in that it becomes, it's like it has a life of its own. And the person is so far out of control that it's really difficult to get back in the driver's seat of their life. We talk about that as well. So what the Weiss Method does is it disconnects that cycle in the person at the energetic level. And what that means, a visual to help understand what I'm trying to get across here, is that it's like if you go down to your electrical panel and you pull out a circuit breaker and you disconnect those wires for that circuit breaker, and you put the circuit breaker back in. That's kind of what the Weiss Method does. It actually disconnects that circuit, so it's no longer powered. Now, that is kind of like, and why we need 6 treatments for this particular issue, is that it's so virulent in the system that, like muscle memory, we need to keep reminding the system what it's like to be healthy and not have that circuit connected. So that's why we do the 6 treatments, and it just really takes away the horrific cravings that people feel, even after they've gotten clean. It's still there, and getting clean is huge. That's a really big step for a person, but staying clean is a whole nother thing. And so that's where the Weiss Method can come in and really assist the person.
Absolutely. And those treatments that you're discussing, do those need to happen in person, or is there another alternative?
There is another alternative. In person is great, but there's also the alternative of doing these treatments remotely. And there's actually, I think there's a blog post on the website that explains how that works. And it is effective, incredibly effective. As I said, it's an energy-based treatment, and energy is amazing. It can, it travels without wires. So yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. And you mentioned a little bit in the beginning what the treatments look like. They're energy based. Kind of how long is each session, and just kind of what does that look like for somebody if they're getting started with the Weiss method?
Yeah. So the first treatment is usually we ask people to put aside 90 minutes, and the first part is what we call a pre-treatment conversation, where it's explained what to expect during the treatment and what to expect after the treatment. And then the second part of that particular 90 minutes is the treatment. So then, really the subsequent treatments are about 45 minutes. And part of that is just a check-in and things like that. So, and speaking of check-ins, there's also, scheduled phone calls to really with the practitioner to see if there's any questions that come up, to see how things are going, any, tweaking that can be done in between treatments and things of that nature.
Makes sense. And outside of just making sure that someone's clean and has a general practitioner that can be there if necessary, is there anything else that someone needs to do to be prepared to start the Weiss method?
They need to have made a commitment to themselves that this is what they want. And that it's got to be a very, very important commitment to themselves, not to anybody else, but only to them. Not that it can't be to other people in their life as a second principle, but first principle, it's about them and their life.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Well, if someone is ready to get more information on the Weiss method or get started, what's the easiest way that they can get in contact and get the process going?
Yep, just go to the website, weissmethodusa.com, and there is a contact form that can be filled out there, and there is then somebody will get back in touch with you, and a consult is set up, which usually it's a phone consult, lasts 15-20 minutes, and gives an opportunity to see if, for the person to ask their questions, and for us to actually see if the person's ready and if it's a good fit for them.
Absolutely. That sounds great. Well, is there anything else anyone needs to know before they get started? Or I think we have our steps pretty lined up for them if they're ready.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. Any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. There's also an email. You can always ask questions over email. info@weissmethodusa.com.
Sounds great. Well, she gave the info on the website to get started. I think that's it for this episode of the Weiss Method. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out on the website. If you want more information about the Weiss Method, we have other episodes that you can check out on the website, the YouTube channel, and we look forward to helping you in your journey. Thanks for watching.